Blender 4.2 is already in beta, and with it comes a new version of Eevee called Eevee Next. This is going to change real-time rendering for real this time. Think of what Lumen did for Unreal Engine. That's exactly what Eevee Next is doing for Blender. We are talking ray tracing, global illumination, better volumetrics, shader level displacement, and more. It's still a work in progress, but a lot of progress nonetheless. So let's explore everything that Eevee Next can do and how it compares to Cycles. Eevee Next now supports mesh lighting. This is when you have a mesh with an emission shader. Before this update, the emission shader was supported in Eevee, but meshes would only look brighter and would not give off any light, or no additional light would be added to your scene from any emission shaders. Now, with ray tracing, any emissive surfaces can actually contribute light into your scene. The only limitation is that this is based on screen space. What this means is that the light will only be calculated if the emitter object is visible on screen. If it's obstructed or off screen, then it won't affect your scene. Because we now have ray tracing, we also have global illumination, mesh lighting, and bounce lighting as well. You will also notice that on every setting, there is now a resolution setting to let you choose the quality of the effect. If you want to render ray tracing at full resolution, you can change the resolution ratio to 1:1 for 100% resolution. You can also drop it to a ratio of 1:5, which would be half the resolution. You have to also note that all these settings use the render samples or viewport samples as the baseline. So if you want higher quality, first increase your viewport or render samples and then play with the ratio. Another thing that ray tracing helps with is reflections and refractions. When you have reflective glass in your scene, make sure that ray tracing is on, and in the shader settings, turn on ray traced transmission and transparent shadows. You can change the index of refraction in the glass shader you are using. Is that light from HDRI images can now cast shadows into your scenes. This was only possible in Cycles, and now it's here in Eevee. This tremendously improves the quality of your renders. One thing to note though, if you are testing this out, make sure your HDRI is of daytime with bright sunlight. Otherwise you miss the shadows if you're using an overcast sky where the shadows are much softer. Yes, they will be there. But I had an issue where I thought my version was bugged until I realized the HDRI I used had dark. So if you have a PBR material you downloaded somewhere and it has a displacement map, it's time to put it to folder. Select all textures, and the shader will choose what is necessary and connect them accordingly. It will connect the displacement too. The next step is to go to the shading settings under surface and change the displacement type to displacement and bump. If your mesh is well subdivided, that's all you have to do. If it's not, change the levels to about 6 for the viewport and render. You can change the strength of the displacement using the displacement node's scale setting. Now that's magic. You would think that's all, but no, there is still more. Let's talk improvements to volumetrics. Volumetrics now render with high quality faster and don't become blurry when you are playing back in the viewport. This makes it easy to render fire and VDBs imported into your scene. This also makes God rays render better and faster. Unfortunately for now, it does not seem like VDBs can emit light into the scene yet. And that's it. Those are the most important things you need to know about Eevee Next.